November 1943. Haarlem, the Netherlands. The lipstick tasted like wax and old pennies. It was a cheap, scavenged tube, a shade of red that looked too bright against Freddie's pale skin. She stared into the cracked mirror in the hallway, trying to find the woman in the reflection. But all she saw was a 14-year-old girl playing dress-up. She was small. That was her greatest weapon. She had soft cheeks, braided hair, and eyes that could widen into a perfect, convincing mask of innocence. To the German occupiers, she looked like a child. To the Dutch collaborators, she looked like a victim. To the resistance, she was a loaded weapon. "Are you ready?" Freddie turned. Her older sister, Truus, was leaning against the doorframe. Truus was tougher, harder, the one who rode the bicycle with the heavy bags of weapons. But tonight, the role belonged to Freddie. "Do I look like a whore?" Freddie asked, her voice trembling slightly. "You look like a girl who lost her way," Truus corrected her. She stepped forward and adjusted the collar of Freddie's coat. "That's what they like. They like to think they are saving you. Or owning you." Truus reached into the pocket of Freddie's coat. She checked the weight of the object inside. It was an FN Model 1910 pistol. Small, reliable, deadly at close range. "Remember the rules," Truus whispered, her eyes locking onto Freddie's. "Don't let him touch you. Not really. Get him to the woods. Get him to the clearing. I will be behind the tree line. If you miss, I won't." Freddie nodded. She felt the cold steel against her hip. It felt impossibly heavy, like it was pulling her center of gravity down into the earth. "Who is it tonight?" Freddie asked. "Obersturmführer Klaus Miller," Truus said, spitting the name like a curse. "He's at the Gouden Lou Tavern. He likes young girls. He likes to buy them chocolate." Freddie swallowed the bile rising in her throat. "Chocolate. Kill him, Freddie," Truus said, her voice devoid of mercy. "For what he did to the Cohen family. Put him in the ground. The lion's den." The Gouden Lou, the Golden Lion, smelled of stale beer, sawdust, and the coarse tobacco favored by the Wehrmacht. It was warm inside, a stark contrast to the biting November wind that whipped through the canals of Haarlem. Freddie pushed the heavy door open and stepped inside. The noise hit her first. A wall of laughter, clinking glasses, and the guttural cadence of the German language. She stood by the door, clutching her small purse, looking wide-eyed and terrified. It wasn't entirely acting. The bar was filled with gray uniforms, the master race drunk on stolen Genever and power. She scanned the room. She knew his face from the dossier. Klaus Miller. He was sitting at a corner table, holding court with two younger officers. He was handsome in a cruel, sharp-edged way. Blonde hair slicked back, a uniform that was tailored perfectly, a ring on his finger that he probably stripped off a corpse. Freddie took a breath. "I am not Freddie," she told herself. "I am a lost girl. I am hungry. I am weak." She walked towards the bar, moving slowly, letting her gaze drift nervously. Miller saw her. It happened just as Truus had predicted. The predator's radar pinged. He stopped talking mid-sentence. His eyes, blue and watery from drink, locked onto her. He looked her up and down, lingering on her legs, her face, her apparent vulnerability. He said something to his comrades, and they laughed. Then he stood up. Freddie stopped. She pretended to look for someone, then looked down at her shoes. "Are you lost? Kleins Mädchen, little girl?" The voice was smooth, cultured. He stood over her. He smelled of brandy and cologne, a scent that tried to mask the metallic odor of the war. Freddie looked up. She forced a shy smile. I was looking for my uncle," she lied. Her voice was high, breathy. "He said he would be here." Miller smiled. It was a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Your uncle is a lucky man to have such a pretty niece looking for him. What is your name?" "Anna," she said. "Anna." Miller tasted the name. "I am Klaus. Your uncle isn't here, Anna. But it is cold outside. Why don't you sit? Have a drink. Something warm." "I shouldn't." Freddie took a half step back. "My mother will be angry." "Your mother doesn't have to know." Miller leaned in. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small bar of chocolate. Real chocolate, a rarity in the starving Netherlands. He held it out like a lure. "For the pretty girl," he whispered. Freddie stared at the chocolate. She let her stomach rumble. It wasn't hard. She hadn't eaten properly in 2 days. "Thank you, sir," she whispered. She took the chocolate. His fingers brushed hers. His skin was hot, dry. She sat down. The dance. For an hour, Freddie lived in hell. She sat at the table with the monster. She listened to him talk about his home in Munich, about the ungrateful Dutch, about how he was bringing civilization to this swamp of a country. She nibbled the chocolate. She drank the lemonade he bought her. Every sip felt like swallowing glass. She watched his hands. Large, manicured hands. Hands that signed death warrants. Hands that had dragged her Jewish neighbors out of their homes 3 weeks ago. She had to get him out. "It is getting late," Freddie said, standing up. "I have to go." Miller grabbed her wrist. His grip was surprisingly strong. "So soon," he slurred slightly. "The night is young, Anna." "I live far," she said. "Across the woods. In Bloemendel." Miller's eyes lit up. The woods. The Haarlemmerhout. It was dark, secluded. The perfect place for what he wanted. "You cannot walk alone," Miller said, standing up and adjusting his belt. "It is dangerous. There are bandits." He put his cap on. "I will walk you," he declared. "A German officer is a gentleman, after all." Freddie hesitated, playing the part. "Oh, I couldn't ask. I insist." He threw some guilders on the table. He took her arm. He didn't offer it, he took it. He was claiming his prize. As they walked out of the warm tavern and into the freezing night, Freddie glanced at the window. She saw a shadow move across the street. Truus was there. The long walk. The city gave way to the silence of the outskirts. The blackout curtains made the houses look like skulls with empty eye sockets. The only light came from the half-moon peeking through the winter clouds. Miller was in a good mood. He hummed a Wagner tune. He kept his hand on the small of Freddie's back, guiding her, pushing her slightly. His touch made her skin crawl. "You are very quiet, Anna," Miller said. "I am cold," Freddie said. "We will be warm soon," Miller laughed softly. "Tell me, do you have a boyfriend?" "No, sir." "Good. Dutch boys are weak. They don't know how to treat a woman." They reached the edge of the Haarlemmerhout. The ancient forest loomed ahead, a wall of black trunks and tangled branches. It was the oldest forest in the Netherlands. Tonight it was a graveyard. "This way," Freddie said, pointing to a narrow path. "It is a shortcut." Miller hesitated for a second, looking into the dark. But the alcohol and the promise of the girl overrode his training. He followed her. The ground turned from cobblestones to frozen mud. The wind howled through the branches. Freddie's heart was hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. Is Truus there? Is she in position? She felt the weight of the gun in her pocket. She gripped the handle. Her palm was sweating despite the cold. "It is very dark here," Miller muttered. He stopped. He pulled Freddie around to face him. They were deep enough now. No one would hear. "Anna," Miller whispered. He reached out and touched her braid. "You are beautiful." He leaned in. He smelled of decay. "Sir, please." Freddie stepped back. "Don't be shy." Miller's voice hardened. "I gave you chocolate. Now you give me something." He lunged for her. The transformation. It happened in slow motion. Miller grabbed her shoulders. He pushed her against a large oak tree. His mouth was open, wet. Freddie didn't scream. The innocent Anna evaporated. In her place was the soldier. She went limp for a split second, causing him to stumble forward. Then, she jammed her knee upward, hard, into his groin. Miller grunted in shock, doubling over. Freddie stepped back. She ripped the FN 1910 from her coat pocket. Miller looked up. His face was twisted in pain and confusion. He saw the girl. He saw the gun. He laughed. A wheezing, disbelief-filled laugh. "You?" he gasped. "You, little bitch?" He didn't believe she would shoot. He saw a child holding a toy. He straightened up, anger replacing lust. "Give me that," he growled, reaching for her. Freddie didn't hesitate. She didn't close her eyes. For the Cohens. She pulled the trigger. Bang! The sound was deafening in the quiet woods. A flash of light illuminated the trees. The bullet hit Miller in the chest. He staggered back, looking at his uniform. A dark stain was spreading rapidly. He looked at Freddie. The arrogance was gone. There was only fear. "Hilfe!" he whispered. He fell to his knees, then face forward into the mud. Freddie stood over him. Her ears were ringing. The gun was smoking in the cold air. She watched him twitch. Once, twice. Then he was still. A twig snapped behind her. Freddie spun around, raising the gun. It was Truus. She stepped out from behind a beech tree, holding her own weapon. Truus walked over to the body. She kicked Miller's boot. "Is he dead?" Truus asked. "Yes," Freddie whispered. Her voice sounded strange, like it belonged to someone else. Truus looked at Freddie. She saw the shaking hands. She saw the wide eyes. "Put the gun away, Freddie," Truus said softly. Freddie couldn't move. She was staring at the man she had just killed. He wasn't a monster anymore. He was a pile of meat and cloth. Truus gently pried the gun from Freddie's fingers. She put it in her own pocket. "Come," Truus said. "We have to move. The patrol will hear the shot." Truus grabbed Freddie's arm. "Freddie, look at me." Freddie looked up. "You did it," Truus said. "You saved lives tonight. Never forget that." Freddie looked back at the body. The chocolate wrapper was sticking out of his pocket. "I want to go home," Freddie said. The aftermath. They rode their bicycles back in silence. The wind bit at Freddie's face, drying the tears she didn't know she was shedding. When they got to their small house, their mother was waiting. She didn't ask where they had been. She saw the mud on their shoes. She saw the look in their eyes. She heated up some water on the stove. "Wash," their mother said. Freddie scrubbed her hands. She scrubbed until the skin was raw and red. She scrubbed to get the smell of Miller's cologne, the feel of the gun, and the wax of the lipstick off. She looked in the mirror again. The girl with the braids was still there, but the eyes had changed. They were older, darker. She had led a man into the woods to die, and she knew, with a terrifying certainty, that he wouldn't be the last. Truus came in and sat on the edge of the bathtub. "We have another name," Truus said quietly. Freddie stopped scrubbing. She looked at her sister. "Who?" "A Dutch policeman. Collaborator. He is worse than the Germans." Freddie dried her hands. She picked up the lipstick tube. "When?" Freddie asked. "Tomorrow." Freddie uncapped the lipstick. She applied a fresh coat of red. It looked like blood. "I'll be ready," she said. February 1944. Haarlem, the Netherlands. Winter had turned the canals into gray ribbons of ice. The occupation was tightening its grip. Food was scarce. Tulip bulbs were now a staple on dinner tables, and paranoia was the currency of the streets. Freddie Overstegen was 15 now. She didn't feel 15. She felt like a ghost haunting her own city. The liquidation of Klaus Miller had been a success, but it had also painted a target on their backs. The Gestapo knew there was a cell of women operating in Haarlem. They called them the Girl Gang. But tonight, the target wasn't a German. It was someone far more dangerous. "Willem van der Berg," Truus said, sliding a photograph across the kitchen table. Freddie looked at the face. He looked like a kindly grandfather. Round glasses, a soft smile. "He runs the orphanage on Parkland," Truus explained. "He's been hiding Jewish children." Freddie frowned. "Then why is he a target?" "He's a hero." "He was a hero," Hanny Shaft interjected. Hanny was the third member of their trinity. Older, fiercer, with flaming red hair that she had dyed black to avoid detection. She was a law student before the war. Now she was an executioner. "We intercepted a letter," Hanny continued. "Van der Berg is selling them. He takes the children in, collects money from their desperate parents for safekeeping, and when the money runs out, he calls the Gestapo. Freddie felt a cold fury ignite in her chest. Killing Germans was war. Killing a traitor who preyed on children was justice. He betrayed the Koopman family last week, Truist said quietly. 3 children, all sent to Westerbork, then to Poland. Freddie stood up. She picked up the photo. How do we do it? The bicycle trap. The plan was simple, brazen, and dangerous. Van der Berg had a routine. Every Tuesday evening, he cycled to the police station to deliver his reports. He took the path along the canal, near the old windmill. It was quiet there. We can't use the woods trick, Hanny said. He knows us, or he knows of us. He won't walk with a girl. So we do a drive-by, Truist said. Freddie rides on the back of my bike. We pull up alongside him. Freddie shoots. We disappear down the alley. It required perfect timing and steady hands. Shooting from a moving bicycle was difficult. I can do it, Freddie said. If you miss, Hanny warned, he will identify you. He knows everyone in Haarlem. I won't miss. Tuesday, 1800 hours. The wind was cutting through Freddie's coat. She sat on the luggage rack of Truist's bicycle, her legs dangling. She had her hands in her pockets, gripping the FN 1910. They were waiting in the shadows of an alleyway near the canal. He's coming, Truist whispered. Freddie peeked out. A man on a heavy black bicycle was pedaling slowly against the wind. It was Van der Berg. He wore a thick wool coat and a hat pulled low. He looked so normal, so innocent. Ready? Truist asked. Go. Truist pushed off. They picked up speed, the tires humming on the cobblestones. They merged onto the path, coming up behind Van der Berg. They closed the distance. 20 meters. 10 meters. Freddie pulled the gun out. She hid it against Truist's coat. They pulled alongside him. Van der Berg looked over. He saw 2 girls on a bike. He smiled. Good evening, ladies, he called out over the wind. Freddie looked him in the eye. She saw the face of a man who sold children for profit. Good evening, Willem, Freddie said. She raised the gun. Van der Berg's smile vanished. His eyes widened behind his glasses. He tried to swerve. Crack, crack. Freddie fired twice. The first shot hit his shoulder. The second hit his neck. Van der Berg lost control. His bicycle wobbled and crashed into the canal railing. He flipped over the bars and hit the pavement hard. Keep going, Freddie yelled. Truist pedaled harder. They sped away, turning sharply into a side street, then another. Behind them they heard shouting. But no police whistles. Not yet. The mistake. They ditched the bike in a safe house garage. They stripped off their coats and changed their hats. They walked back to their own neighborhood separately. Freddie's heart was racing. It had been messy. He hadn't died instantly. She had seen him moving on the ground. Did he see my face? The next morning, the news spread. Willem van der Berg was in the hospital. Critical condition, but alive. He's alive, Truist said, her face pale as she read the newspaper. And he's talking. Freddie felt the blood drain from her face. He saw me. He looked right at me. We have to leave, Hanny said. Haarlem isn't safe. The Gestapo will be turning every stone. But before they could pack, a knock came at the door. It wasn't the heavy pound of the Gestapo. It was a rhythmic, secret knock. Top, top, Perse, top. Truist opened the door. It was a young boy from the resistance. They are moving him, the boy panted. The Germans. They are moving Van der Berg to the military hospital in Amsterdam today. An ambulance convoy. Why? Truist asked. Because he promised to give them names, the boy said. He told them he knows the face of the girl who shot him. He's trading the description for protection. The 3 women looked at each other. If Van der Berg talked, the entire Haarlem cell would be liquidated. Their mother would be killed. We have to finish it, Hanny said. Before he gets to Amsterdam. The ambush. They didn't have time to plan. They had to act on instinct. The ambulance has to cross the bridge at Halfweg, Truist said. It's a choke point. If we can stop it there. How do we stop an ambulance surrounded by guards? Freddie asked. Hanny smiled. It was a terrifying smile. She reached into her bag and pulled out a German MP-40 submachine gun, stolen from a dead soldier months ago. "We don't stop it," Hanny said. "We erase it." They drove a stolen car, a black Citroën, to the bridge. Truist drove. Hanny sat in the passenger seat with the MP-40 under a blanket. Freddie was in the back with her pistol. It was raining hard. Visibility was poor. "Here they come," Truist said. A gray Wehrmacht ambulance, flanked by 2 motorcycles, was approaching the bridge. "Blocking position," Hanny ordered. Truist slammed on the brakes, swerving the Citroën sideways across the narrow bridge. She killed the engine. "Out! Out!" They jumped out of the car and took cover behind the engine block. The German convoy screeched to a halt. The motorcycle guards drew their weapons, shouting. "Clear the road," one shouted in German. "This is a medical transport." Hanny stood up. Her red hair, now dyed back to red as a symbol of defiance, whipped in the wind. "Medical transport for a traitor," Hanny screamed. She unleashed the MP-40. "Tat." The windshield of the ambulance shattered. The driver slumped over the wheel. The motorcycle guards returned fire. Bullets sparked off the Citroën. Freddie popped up and fired her pistol, hitting one guard in the leg. He went down, his bike skidding across the wet asphalt. "The back doors!" Truist yelled. "Get the doors!" Hanny laid down suppression fire while Truist and Freddie ran toward the ambulance. The back doors swung open. A German medic stumbled out, hands raised. "Don't shoot! Doctor!" he screamed. Truist shoved him aside. Inside, strapped to a stretcher, was Willem van der Berg. His neck was bandaged. His eyes were wide with terror. He saw Freddie. He recognized her. "You!" he rasped. "You are the devil." Freddie looked at him. She didn't see a man. She saw the trains to Poland. She saw the empty beds in the orphanage. "No," Freddie said softly. "I'm just a girl." She raised her gun. Bang! This time she didn't miss. The escape. "We have to go. Now!" Hanny screamed. Sirens were wailing in the distance. Reinforcements were coming. They ran back to the Citroën. It wouldn't start. The radiator had been shot. "The canal!" Truist yelled. They abandoned the car and jumped over the railing, sliding down the muddy bank to the water's edge. A small rowboat was tied to a piling. They scrambled in. Truist grabbed the oars. They rowed frantically into the mist, just as German trucks roared onto the bridge above them. Searchlights swept the water. Beams of light cut through the rain, missing them by inches. They rowed until their muscles burned. They rowed until the city was just a glow in the distance. They hid the boat in the reeds and collapsed on the muddy bank, gasping for air. Freddie lay on her back, letting the rain wash over her face. She was shaking uncontrollably. "Is it over?" she whispered. Hanny checked her magazine. "For him? Yes. For us? No." Hanny looked at Freddie. She reached out and brushed a strand of wet hair from Freddie's face. "You did good, little one," Hanny said. "You saved us all." Freddie closed her eyes. She saw Vanderberg's face. She saw the fear. "I don't feel like a hero," Freddie whispered. "I feel hollow." "That's the price," Truist said, grabbing her hand. "The hollowness means you're still human. The day you feel nothing, that's the day the Nazis win." The redhead, the assassination of Vanderberg made them legends. The Nazis put a price on their heads. They called Hanny the girl with the red hair. They couldn't go home. They moved from safe house to safe house, sleeping in attics, eating tulip bulbs, cleaning their weapons. They became colder, more efficient. They blew up railways. They forged ID cards. They liquidated 3 more collaborators. But the net was closing. March 1945. The war was almost over. The Allies were crossing the Rhine. But the Germans in Holland were desperate. They were starving the population. They were shooting anyone who looked at them wrong. Hanny Shaft was stopped at a checkpoint in Haarlem. She had illegal newspapers in her bicycle bag, and her roots were showing red. They arrested her. Freddie and Truist waited in the safe house. 1 day passed. 2 days. She's not coming, Truist said, her voice breaking. Freddie stared out the window. We have to break her out. We can't, Truist said. They took her to the dunes, to the execution grounds. Freddie grabbed her pistol. I'm going. Truist tackled her. They fought on the floor of the attic, screaming, crying. You can't save her, Truist sobbed, pinning Freddie down. If you go, you die too. And then who tells her story? Freddie stopped fighting. She lay on the floor, weeping. Hannie Shaft was executed on April 17, 1945, 3 weeks before the liberation. Her last words to the German firing squad were legendary. After their first volley only wounded her, she looked at them and said, I shoot better than you. The end of the war. May 5, 1945. The Canadians rolled into Harlem. People flooded the streets. Flags waved. Chocolate and cigarettes were thrown from tanks. Girls kissed soldiers. Freddie and Truist stood on the balcony of their safe house. They watched the celebration. They were 19 and 21 years old. They looked 40. They didn't cheer. They didn't wave flags. It's over, Truist said. Freddie touched the pocket of her coat. The gun was gone. She had thrown it into the canal that morning. Is it? Freddie asked. She looked at the crowd. She saw neighbors who had done nothing while Jews were taken away, now cheering for freedom. She saw shopkeepers who had served Germans, now waving Dutch flags. They get to forget, Freddie said bitterly. They get to pretend none of it happened. We won't forget, Truist said. Freddie looked at her hands. They were clean, but she felt the phantom weight of the FN 1910. What do we do now, Truist? Freddie asked. I don't know how to be a girl anymore. I only know how to kill. Truist put her arm around her sister. Now, Truist said, we have the hardest mission of all. We have to learn how to live. 1947. Harlem, the Netherlands. Peace was louder than war. During the occupation, the silence was heavy, filled with the fear of boots on cobblestones. But in peace, there was construction, traffic, shouting, and music. Everyone was rushing to rebuild, to paint over the bullet holes, to forget. Freddie Overstegen was 21. She was trying to be normal. She worked in a factory. She wore bright dresses. She went to dances. But the nights were the problem. In her dreams, she wasn't dancing. She was back in the woods. She could smell the cologne of Klaus Miller. She could feel the recoil of the FN 1910 snapping her wrist back. She saw the eyes of the traitors widening just before the lights went out. She would wake up screaming, her sheets soaked in sweat, her hand groping under the pillow for a gun that wasn't there. Freddie, Truist would whisper from the next bed. It's okay. You're home. I'm not home. Freddie would gasp, staring at the ceiling. I'm still there. The cold shoulder. The war didn't just end. It shifted. The Nazis were gone. But a new frost had settled over Europe. The Cold War. Freddie and Truist had fought in a communist resistance cell. During the war, they were heroes. But now, with the Americans rebuilding Europe and the Russians looming in the east, communist was a dirty word again. The Dutch government didn't give them medals. They didn't invite them to parades. Instead, the Secret Service opened files on them. They were watched. We killed Nazis while the government fled to London, Truist said bitterly one evening, throwing a newspaper onto the table. And now they treat us like enemies of the state. Hannie Shaft became a national icon, the girl with the red hair, because she was dead. Dead heroes are safe. They don't talk back. They don't have politics. But Freddie and Truist were alive, and they were inconvenient. Let them keep their medals, Freddie said, lighting a cigarette. Her hands still shook sometimes. We didn't do it for them. We did it for the children. But it hurt. To be erased from history felt like a second death. 1950s to 1980s. The mother with the secret. Freddie got married. She took the name Decker. She had 3 children. She tried to be the perfect Dutch housewife. She cooked stampot. She cleaned the windows until they sparkled. She scolded her children for dirty knees. But her children knew their mother was different. She didn't like fireworks. When a car backfired in the street, She didn't jump. She went into a crouch, her eyes scanning the perimeter instantly. She never talked about the war. It was a black box locked deep in the cellar of her mind. One day, her young son found an old box in the attic. Inside was a trench coat and a strange, heavy flashlight. "Mama, what is this?" Freddie froze. She took the coat gently. She ran her thumb over the lapel. "That is my old work coat," she said softly. "What work did you do?" Freddie looked at her son. How could she tell him that she used to seduce monsters in bars and lead them to their deaths? How could she tell him that his mother was an assassin? "I cleaned up," Freddie said. "I helped clean up the city." She put the coat back. She never opened the box again. The trauma. The years rolled on. Truist became an artist, pouring her trauma into sculptures and paintings. She talked about the war constantly, giving lectures, keeping Hanny's name alive. It was her therapy. Freddie went the other way. She went inward. She suffered. The depression was a heavy gray blanket. There were days she couldn't get out of bed. The doctors gave her pills for nerves. They didn't understand. There was no name for PTSD then. They just called it shell shock for soldiers. But for a girl, they called it hysteria. "You have to talk about it, Freddie," Truist urged her when they were in their 60s. "It's poisoning you." "If I let it out," Freddie whispered, "I'm afraid it will never stop coming out. I'm afraid I'll drown in the blood." "You won't drown," Truist said. "I'm here. I'm swimming with you." Slowly, painfully, Freddie started to speak. She gave a few interviews. She joined Truist in creating the National Hanny Shaft Foundation. She realized that keeping the secret was killing her faster than the memories were. 2014. The vindication. Took 70 years. Freddie was 89. Truist was 91. They were old women now with white hair and fragile bones. They lived in nursing homes. But the world had finally caught up. The Cold War was over. Historians began to look at the girl gang of Harlem with new eyes. They realized these teenagers had been the most effective liquidators in the entire resistance. Prime Minister Mark Rutte announced that Freddie and Truist would receive the Mobilization War Cross. It was a high military honor. The ceremony was solemn. Freddie sat in her wheelchair. She wore a nice jacket and a silk scarf. When the medal was pinned to her chest, she didn't cry. She looked at it with a strange, detached curiosity. "Better late than never," she cracked. Her wit was still sharp as a razor. A reporter asked her, "Do you regret it? The killings?" The room went quiet. It was the question everyone wanted to ask, but few dared. Freddie looked at the reporter with those same eyes, the eyes that had stared down Klaus Miller in the woods. "I've shot a gun and I've seen them fall," Freddie said clearly. "And what is inside us at such a moment? You want to help them get up. It is a human reflex." She paused. "We did not feel it suited us," she said. "It never suits a human being to kill. But we had to do it. It was a necessary evil." She didn't say she was proud. She didn't say she was sorry. She said it was necessary. September 5, 2018. Driehuis. Truist had died 2 years earlier, in 2016. Freddie was the last one left, the last guardian of the story. She was 92. Her heart, which had raced with adrenaline in 1943, was finally slowing down. She lay in her bed in the nursing home. The window was open. She could smell the trees. Her son sat by her side, holding her hand. "It's okay, Mama," he said. "You can rest now." Freddie closed her eyes. The nursing home faded away. The pain in her joints faded away. She was back on the bicycle. The wind was rushing through her hair. The canal water sparkled in the sun. Truist was pedaling in front, strong and fearless. Hanny was riding beside them, her red hair blazing like a flag, laughing, her head thrown back. They weren't assassins. They weren't soldiers. They were just girls. They were riding toward a future where there were no Nazis, no guns, no dark woods. A future they had bought with their own innocence. "I'm coming," Freddie whispered. Her breathing stopped. The room was silent. The last member of the Harlem Girl Cell had left the battlefield. Epilogue. Freddie Oversteegen died on September 5, 2018, one day before her 93rd birthday. Her death made news around the world. The New York Times, the BBC, papers from Tokyo to Rio ran the headline: "The teenager who seduced Nazis and lured them to their deaths dies at 92. People were fascinated. They made movies, wrote books. They called her a hero. But in Harlem, if you walk through the woods near the Harlemer Hout at dusk, when the wind blows through the ancient oak trees, the locals say you can feel something. It isn't a ghost. It isn't fear. It is a quiet, steely resolve. It is the spirit of three girls who looked at the ultimate evil and said, 'Not here. Not today.' And somewhere in the quiet of history, Freddie Oversteegen is finally, truly, just a girl again." The end.